Hey, good afternoon, morning, evening, depending on where you're dialing in from. And at least when I popped on, I saw that it was lunch break, so it's never fun going. At least I remember back from my days at West Point as a young undergrad. The worst classes were the ones right after lunch when everybody would fall asleep. So I hope I don't do that to you. But after a full year of conducting virtual engagements, it amazes me how we have adopted and we've kept collaborative events like this going. I'm grateful, truthfully, for the opportunity to speak with you today and then answer some questions. First, thanks to Dr. Eisenberg and the entire University of South Florida that has made this conference a reality. USF has been a great Tampa Bay neighbor, specifically to SOCOM, and their academic partnership with the Department of Defense will continue to be incredibly valuable. I also want to thank my good friend, General Frank McKenzie, and next door neighbor, and also thank Admiral Craig Fowler, Commander of Southcom, and already mentioned Paul Nakasone, Commander of Cybercom, and the Honorable Mike McConnell and other past and present interagency leaders. I'm going to take a few minutes first to talk about Special Operations Forces, otherwise known through the common vernacular as SOF. I'm going to talk about them in today's strategic environment and how cyberspace is an indispensable domain in our work and how we must change to maintain that advantage in light of associated vulnerabilities and opportunities. So first to SOCOM and SOF. We provide unique capabilities across four broad mission sets. I call them the 4 C's: crisis response, counterterrorism, competition, and if needed, conflict. Crisis response is our standing requirement to respond 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to a dynamic, isolated event that requires rapid, precision action to protect American citizens or our interests abroad. For example, a hostage situation would fall into that category. Nobody else in DoD can do these missions as well as we do. So for our formation, I always look at this as our no-fail mission. Number 2 mission, counterterrorism or countering violent extremist organizations. It's been our primary focus for the past 20 years, since the attacks on our homeland on 9/11. And even as we transition from places like Afghanistan and we prioritize, there should be no doubt in anyone's mind that these are generational threats that will remain an operational priority for this headquarters and for all our forces for some long time. Thirdly, competition. The struggle for advantage among states below the level of armed conflict. It is an ubiquitous aspect of international politics that has and will continue to impact every aspect of national security. Modern SOF were developed amid the strategic competition at the onset of the Cold War, and our rebalance toward capabilities that support competition activities is a return to the principles in a way, albeit, and we'll talk about this in cyberspace, in a world that is much different than the one that we were talking at the onset of the Cold War. And finally, we, SOCOM and SOF, enable the joint force to win in conflict when necessary. When conflict occurs, SOF do what our predecessors have done for centuries: apply surprise and precision to provide asymmetric advantage and strategic effects through small, agile units armed with special tactics and equipment. Across all these missions, it's rare when SOF acts alone. In fact, looking back over more than 30 years of my personal experiences in and with SOF, I can't provide a good example of unilateral SOF action. We work by, with, and through foreign partners, and hand in hand with interagency teams and conventional military forces. Cyberspace and associated technologies have hyper-connected humans globally, just like we're doing today. This is true for all of us, friends and adversaries alike. Cyberspace is now pervasive in most everyday activities and military operations. For SOF, opportunities and vulnerabilities in cyberspace generally revolve around three areas: security, access, and influence. First, let me talk about security. Everyone here understands this requirement intimately. It's the central theme of this conference. Cybersecurity, or more specifically, data security in cyberspace, must be a foundational consideration as we evolve our organizational structure, plan operations, and execute every mission. Data, as we all know, is the fuel for decision-making. Bad data costs our US economy billions. In the military, bad data could cost lives. Our data is a combat multiplier, and it is a critical vulnerability that adversaries will relentlessly attack with increased sophistication. General Nakasone and others have talked quite a bit about the SolarWinds attack as just one example. Our ability to quickly gain insight from data will continue to increase in importance, especially as we use that insight to prevent conflict. Today, internet users create millions of terabytes of data every single day. That volume will continue to grow, as will the advantage to be gained from analyzing some of our data at scale. At SOCOM, we understand this value, and analyzing data in cyber environments is a major focus. As the Department of Defense moves closer to implementing cloud computing and cross-domain solutions, security in cyberspace will become the chief concern amongst all echelons. That this makes near-term upgrades, such as enabling zero trust security architectures, absolutely essential. Our SOF teams operate disaggregated at the tactical edge, often embedded with military partners. Cybersecurity is a matter of survival and basic mission accomplishment. Our secure communications and intelligence processing enable the simplest task, and in the case of clandestine operations, help us protect our people while obfuscating our strategic goals and our investments. Our adversaries desperately want to uncover this information. As you can all guess or think about, playing chess is not nearly as challenging if you know your opponent's next move in advance. The second consideration for us is access. Our emphasis on security is about preventing adversary access to our data. But two are playing at this game, and we want access of our own. In this area, SOCOM is beginning to play a valuable role. In recent years, SOCOM has worked closely with Cyber Command through various venues to understand the growing mutual dependencies between SOF and cyber operations. In early conceptual form, we call it SOF-enabled cyber, and in some cases, cyber-enabled SOF. We're just starting to scratch the surface on the potential for this relationship. But a central component to this mutually supporting value is helping each other gain access. As a general illustration, imagine that a cyberspace offensive action was the best means of accomplishing a strategic objective. But the targeted adversary had effective cybersecurity, and the access required a physical intrusion, or at least geographic proximity. In this case, soft capabilities became a critical enabler, either through trusted partnership abroad or through clandestine infiltration in the case of actual armed conflict. Soft identify, track, and enable physical intrusion to a hardened network. Conversely, when soft need access to information or physical access within a denied or contested area, cyber teams may provide digital access and cyber effects that drop anti-access barriers, confuse adversary defensive systems, or cause distraction. It enables soft to enter and accomplish their mission undetected, or at the very least, to provide options and buy time. Our soft engagement around the world also provide a different type of access to real-time operational data that is essential for building data tools that operate in cyberspace. General Nakasone talks about Hunt Forward. We talk about soft-enabled teams forward. For several years, soft have enabled DoD as a pathfinder for these emerging technologies through our partnership with the Algorithmic Warfare Task Force and under Project Maven. Through this effort, we are beginning to lay the groundwork for AI-enabled mission command. The third and final component of soft cyber overlap is influence. And by influence in this context, I'm specifically talking about information operations, some referred to as PSYOPs. The internet and social media really have changed the world as we know it, fundamentally altering how humans communicate. These platforms give our adversaries a powerful tool to wield misinformation and disinformation, to influence vulnerable populations around the world, and in some cases, inside our own borders, as we have seen in some of our elections. Over the past decade, both violent extremist organizations and state-level actors have capitalized on this dynamic. The fight against the Islamic State provide one example of how information and disinformation online can spread trans-regional violence. We saw how impactful the savvy use of social media platforms was to terrorist groups, and how web-based coordinating attack could potentially impact soft operations globally. In that vein, SOCOM is seeking ways to increase our capabilities to prevent future attacks, and ultimately to hold accountable those groups that would use the World Wide Web to inspire or to enable terror. Social media has reshaped political warfare, allowing delivery of information operations effects at unimaginable speed and scale, empowered by tech and cyberspace. Now, important point, and I want to be clear here. Information operations that transit cyberspace are not cyber operations. Cyber operation effects have impact on something inside cyberspace itself, the capture or destruction of data, or the manipulation of software functions, controlled access to networks, and the like. Information operations may transit the cyberspace and even use cyber tools to deliver effects, but the effect is psychological. The target is the human mind and human behaviors. Social media now underpins social, civic, political, and commercial life globally, making it a conflict space of immense consequence to both national and individual citizens' security. And democratic governments like ours, I would posit, are the most at risk. The internet has become a battlefield where almost everything is transparent, yet the truth can easily be obscured. The outcome isn't determined by mastery of the facts, but rather the back and forth battle of the psychological, political, and increasingly algorithmic manipulation, where a manufactured event can have real power, while a demonstrably true event can be rendered irrelevant. SOCOM is a DoD thought leader for this online information battle. We have constructed, at the direction of the Department of Defense, the Joint MISO Web Ops Center, a team oriented on shedding light on this online struggle within the information space, providing a coherent global perspective on the problem and synchronizing appropriate responses. We're just getting started and we have a way to go in this, but we're going to continue to push. In our community, we have a few axioms that we call soft truths. To me, chief amongst these truths is the acknowledgement that humans are more important than hardware. But in light of our discussion today, I'll concede that software may be a close second. In both cases, we are searching hard for talent. We've made some significant structural changes in the past 3 years to prioritize on these new requirements for SOCOM. The addition of a command data officer and a software requirements synchronization office inside our acquisitions directorate are two examples. Industry outreach and academic partnerships are also helping us make ground, but closing the technological talent gap between private and public sectors is tremendously important. I'm confident that some of you that are out there in this audience will help us become part of the solution. In closing, SOF operates across crisis, sustained counterterrorism, growing competition, and preparation for potential conflict. Our missions converge routinely and oftentimes with cyberspace. The multifaceted requirements for cybersecurity, access, and influence through information operations will only grow in the coming years. We are transforming SOF to face these challenges and provide value to the nation, our allies, and our partners with SOF capability to maneuver across all domains. I'll reiterate something that I said about a year ago when we did our Special Operations Industry Conference.
Will he be able to see me?
I'll iterate something I said. In many cases, the most important person on one of a future SOF mission may no longer be the operator kicking down the door, but the cyber operator who the team supports. So he or she can gain proximity to get the cyber tools to the right place at the right point into the fight. Hey, to everybody, thanks for the opportunity to speak with you today. And thanks for being part of a team that helps us solve these hard problems. Thank you very much.
General Clarke, this is Mike McConnell. I'm not sure, we're having a little bit of technical difficulty. I'm not sure you can hear me. Can you hear me all right, sir?
Yes, sir, I hear you loud and clear. Good to see you again and see you there at the University of South Florida.
Thank you so much. I'm of course a little older than most people in the audience, and I've witnessed the ebb and flow of the SOF community and how important it is over the years. I got to work with some former colleagues of yours, General Stan McChrystal, when he was the JSOC commander, and later on Bill McCraven. And of course, I was serving at that time as the director of national intelligence, and it was very interesting how SOF forces would go Title 10 or Title 50, depending on the mission. So I've been a big fan and observer for a number of years. General, what I'd like to ask you about is give you just a quick word of background on what is Cyber Florida, the organization I represent at the moment. But what I'm interested in finding out is what can we do for Special Operations Command? How can we support you? Now, let me say just a word about Cyber Florida. Our focus is three things: education, teach more youngsters cyber skills, cybersecurity skills, and that sort of thing. Research, do advanced research into the information domain, cybersecurity, and so on, and then outreach. So where we're sitting, we have the ability to shape focus of the entire state university system, referred to as SUS, 12 universities, for a purpose. We see you and Central Command as a user of these skills and services. So we'd like to open a dialogue so we can find out, what do we train to? What do we educate for? How is it benefiting you? And so maybe I can frame a question or two. You mentioned about the use of data in the future and that sort of thing. So how about direct flow of data to a soft soldier downrange? How he's supported, and then perhaps more importantly, how is that soldier trained to receive, understand, and process that data? So I know that's a long-winded question, but what I'm looking for is, how can we help you in your mission, particularly with your training of your troops?
Hey, Director McConnell, thanks for the question, and great to see you, and thanks for your support in doing this. I'll highlight a couple things that I think would help us. One, keep doing what you're doing. We have to talk about cyber and data and information operations in a different way today than I think we did. You recall the days when military information support operations was loudspeakers and leaflet drops and maybe some radio messages. We really have to think to get inside the enemy's thought process to be able to get our adversaries to not get a free pass in information or disinformation, but also to make sure that we're getting our messages out. Cyberspace enables that, and I think we should continue to have dialogues about about how information is ubiquitous in this space. Now, the second piece is we looked at artificial intelligence and where we're going as a command. We developed a strategy, and our first line in the strategy was to, and probably the most important is develop an artificial intelligence ready workforce. We need the right people that are willing to either be in uniform, but they don't have to be. They can be out of uniform and still support. And I'll give you an example. Last summer, we brought in 10 interns from a nonprofit. These were all master candidates, some doctoral candidates, and they came to SOCOM and to some of our support elements like JSOC that you mentioned. And they worked on some of our hardest problems. So we brought in, all college level students at various levels, and they came here and they helped us work on natural language processing. They helped us work on solving some of our captured enemy material cataloging, and having young men and women enthused about working inside our formation, becoming data scientists, but then applying it here, but knowing they can still contribute. That was so useful. We're doubling down on it this summer, and they help solve some of our problems. And finally, we already have a cooperative research and development agreement with the University of South Florida that we can tap into, capabilities from all of University of South Florida to help us develop capabilities that we need. We find that extremely useful. We have created with some that we have with other academic institutions and found them very valuable. So I'll pause there, sir. It's good to see you.
Great to have a chance to see you, sir. I've had a dialogue with Dean Bob Bishop, who runs the Applied Engineering Institute, and I know he's providing support and it's working out well. And I was actually thinking a little more broadly than that with regard to how we might at least have a dialogue on what we teach our students. So when they come out the other end of the process, they may be more useful to you. And you mentioned interns. I'll just highlight numbers of the 12 state university system universities that we support. It's 300,000 students and probably on the order of 50,000 faculty. So what I want to do is give you access to whatever of that would be helpful. If it's more interns, is it more faculty looking at some of those specific questions? You mentioned AI. We have some world-class AI experts that I also think of as futurists. And I've always had an interest as an Intel guy. I've always had an interest in talking to futurists to sort of see what's over the horizon. So if we can make any of that available to you, it's helpful in any way, more or less, a little bit. Talk to JSAL, talk to your staff, however you would like to shape it. We'd love to step up to the plate and try to help.
Oh, sir, thanks. And we will ensure that we're linked with you and the team, with both JSAL and truthfully with our acquisition executive, because I think there's some natural places where we can coordinate. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so very much for your comments and your participation. Look forward to a continuing dialogue in the future.
Great. Thanks, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.